Thank you very much.
In de studio Geert-Jan Knoops, hoogleraar internationaal strafrecht. Hoe kijkt u hiernaar? Wat vindt u van het bewijs wat vandaag is gepresenteerd?
Het komt inderdaad overtuigend over. Het wordt ook met overtuiging gebracht. Maar
I reviewed the press conference which was held by the Chief Prosecutor of the Joint Investigation Team, JIT, which has investigated the last 2 years the downfall of the MH17. This press conference was very interesting because the two main questions, the first two questions are what type of missile has been fired, and secondly, what was the location. The third question is who are the potential perpetrators, and the fourth question is in what type of court should these individuals be prosecuted. The answers we got today were with respect to the first two questions. Those two questions were actually quite convincingly answered by the chief prosecutor. So the type of missile and the exact location from where the missile would have been fired. I say would have been fired because the Russian Federation already indicated that it will contest the findings of the Joint Investigation Team. Nevertheless, it was presented quite convincingly. But the most important part has yet to come. That's the third stage, the identification of potential perpetrators. There you see two obstacles. There is a group of 100 individuals identified by the chief prosecutor on behalf of the Joint Investigation Team. Within that group, one has to identify specifically who gave the order, which is the command structure, and most importantly, the knowledge. Did the individuals who gave the orders or carry out the orders had knowledge that they were about to shoot down a civilian airplane? And then the fourth stage is the question, if you have identified potential perpetrators, where are you going to try them? Which court? In the international court, the national court? And then actually the fifth question, which the press conference didn't allude to, is how to get these individuals in court physically. Let us assume that at the end of the day, the Joint Investigation Team is able to identify individuals which they hold responsible for this act, and let us suppose that these are of Russian descent. Now, the Russian Constitution prohibits extradition of Russian nationals. So one of the procedure problems in the future will be to have these individuals being extradited to a court outside the Russian Federation, or otherwise have a court in place, international court in place, with which the Russian Federation can approve and can cooperate with. In other words, it was an interesting press conference. It was presented quite convincingly as to the answers of the two first questions, but for an international criminal lawyer, the most important part has yet to come, namely the identification of perpetrators and the evidence to link those individuals to this act, and also to prove the criminal intent which is required for such an act, and in the fourth place, the model based on which you're going to try these individuals. And this will probably take a long time. The chief prosecutor didn't mention the time frame, but we can expect that it can take some years. Another interesting point will be, there was a question by one of the journalists during the press conference, does this imply that the Russian Federation can be kept responsible as a state for the shooting down of the MH17? Although politically it might be tempting to say yes, to confirm that, to affirm that, it's yet too early. Because in order to hold a state politically or legally responsible for such an act as the shooting down of a civilian airplane, more evidence has to be presented than the evidence we saw today. So it remains a politically and legally minefield, this whole case of the MH17. And I expect that maybe in a few years from now we are sitting here again, and then we can make a final conclusion as to the strength of the evidence in order to start a criminal case. And as for now, it's still too early whether a criminal case will, at the end of the day, commence against concrete individuals which can be identified.